Commander Zix stood in front of the big screen on his ship. He looked at the blue and green planet below. His team had been watching Earth for 3 weeks now. They stayed hidden behind the moon so the humans could not see them. The plan was simple. Watch the humans, learn about them, and then invade their planet. The humans looked weak to Zix. They had basic weapons and slow ships. Their cities were built in dangerous places near volcanoes and oceans. They seemed to have no common sense. This would be an easy victory for the Valerian people. Zix had conquered many worlds before, and this one would be the easiest. His assistant Cree walked up to him. She held a datapad in her thin hands. The Valerians looked like they were made of crystal. They were tall and elegant. They came from a peaceful planet where nothing dangerous ever happened. The worst thing on their home world was heavy rain during certain seasons. Cree showed him the data. The humans had guns that shot metal pieces. They had bombs and missiles. But compared to Valerian weapons, these tools were like toys. The Valerians had energy weapons and shields. They could destroy cities from space. The humans would have no chance against them. Zix nodded slowly. Everything looked good, but something felt wrong. He could not explain it. The humans built their homes in places that should kill them. They swam in water with sharks. They climbed tall mountains for fun. They did things that made no sense. He decided to watch them more carefully. He wanted to see how humans acted when they faced danger. He sent out small drones to record human behavior. These drones were invisible to human technology. They could fly anywhere and see everything. One drone followed a human man into a forest. The man was alone. He carried a bag on his back and walked slowly through the trees. The area was called Montana according to human maps. The drone recorded everything. This seemed like a normal human doing a normal activity called hiking. Zix watched the screen with mild interest. The human man looked average. He was not very big or very strong. He wore simple clothes and boots. His name was Jake Morrison according to the identity scan. He worked with computers for a job. He was not a soldier. He was just a regular human taking a walk in nature. Then something appeared on the scanner. A large animal was moving toward the human. The drone identified it as a grizzly bear. The bear was huge. It weighed over 600 pounds. It had long claws and powerful jaws. It could kill the human very easily. Zix leaned forward. This would be interesting. He wanted to see what the human would do. Would he run away? Would he call for help on his communication device? Would he try to hide? This would show Zix how humans responded to danger. The bear stood up on its back legs. It was almost 8 feet tall. It opened its mouth and made a loud roaring sound. The noise was so loud that the drone's sensors almost overloaded. The bear was telling the human to leave its territory. Any smart creature would run away now. Jake Morrison stopped walking. He saw the bear. Zix expected him to panic, but the human did not run. Instead, he did something that shocked everyone on the ship. He made himself look bigger. He raised his arms above his head. He opened his mouth and shouted back at the bear. The human was challenging the bear. He was not running away. He was not hiding. He was facing a creature 3 times his size and threatening it back. This made no sense at all. Cree made a sound of confusion. The other crew members stopped what they were doing. Everyone was watching the screen now. They could not believe what they were seeing. Then the human did something even more crazy. He started walking toward the bear. He picked up a long stick from the ground. He hit the stick against a tree. The sound was sharp and loud. Then he ran at the bear while screaming. The bear dropped down to all 4 legs. It looked confused. Nothing had ever done this before. Prey animals always ran away. Other predators usually backed down after showing their teeth. But this small creature was attacking. The bear had never seen anything like this. Jake Morrison kept running. He kept screaming. He waved the stick in the air. He looked wild and dangerous even though he was much smaller than the bear. He looked like he was ready to fight until one of them died. The bear turned around and ran away. It crashed through the bushes and disappeared into the forest. The huge predator was running from a human with a stick. The bear had all the advantages. It had size, strength, claws, and teeth, but it ran away from the weaker creature. Jake Morrison stood there breathing hard. He lowered the stick. He watched the bear disappear. Then he laughed a little bit. He seemed surprised that his plan had worked. But he had never stopped moving forward. He had bet his life that the bear would back down first. Zix could not speak. His mouth did not work. He just stared at the screen. Around him, his crew was equally silent. No one knew what to say. They had never seen anything like this in all their years of exploring space. Finally, Cree spoke. Her voice was quiet and uncertain. She said maybe this was just one strange human. Maybe Jake Morrison was different from other humans. Maybe he had some kind of mental problem that made him act crazy. Surely normal humans would not do this. But Zix had a bad feeling in his stomach. He told his team to search human internet networks. He wanted to find other examples. He wanted to know if this behavior was normal or rare. He needed to understand what kind of species they were planning to invade. The team worked for hours. They searched through millions of human videos and stories. What they found made the invasion plan seem like a terrible mistake. Jake Morrison was not unusual at all. He was completely normal for a human, and that fact terrified Zix more than anything he had ever encountered in space. Commander Zix stood in front of the big screen on his ship. He looked at the blue and green planet below. His team had been watching Earth for 3 weeks now. They stayed hidden behind the moon so the humans could not see them. The plan was simple. Watch the humans, learn about them, and then invade their planet. The humans looked weak to Zix. They had basic weapons and slow ships. Their cities were built in dangerous places near volcanoes and oceans. They seemed to have no common sense. This would be an easy victory for the Valerian people. Zix had conquered many worlds before, and this one would be the easiest. His assistant Cree walked up to him. She held a datapad in her thin hands. The Valerians looked like they were made of crystal. They were tall and elegant. They came from a peaceful planet where nothing dangerous ever happened. The worst thing on their homeworld was heavy rain during certain seasons. Cree showed him the data. The humans had guns that shot metal pieces. They had bombs and missiles. But compared to Valerian weapons, these tools were like toys. The Valerians had energy weapons and shields. They could destroy cities from space. The humans would have no chance against them. Zix nodded slowly. Everything looked good. But something felt wrong. He could not explain it. The humans built their homes in places that should kill them. They swam in water with sharks. They climbed tall mountains for fun. They did things that made no sense. He decided to watch them more carefully. He wanted to see how humans acted when they faced danger. He sent out small drones to record human behavior. These drones were invisible to human technology. They could fly anywhere and see everything. One drone followed a human man into a forest. The man was alone. He carried a bag on his back and walked slowly through the trees. The area was called Montana according to human maps. The drone recorded everything. This seemed like a normal human doing a normal activity called hiking. Zix watched the screen with mild interest. The human man looked average. He was not very big or very strong. He wore simple clothes and boots. His name was Jake Morrison according to the identity scan. He worked with computers for a job. He was not a soldier. He was just a regular human taking a walk in nature. Then something appeared on the scanner. A large animal was moving toward the human. The drone identified it as a grizzly bear. The bear was huge. It weighed over 600 pounds. It had long claws and powerful jaws. It could kill the human very easily. Zix leaned forward. This would be interesting. He wanted to see what the human would do. Would he run away? Would he call for help on his communication device? Would he try to hide? This would show Zix how humans responded to danger. The bear stood up on its back legs. It was almost 8 feet tall. It opened its mouth and made a loud roaring sound. The noise was so loud that the drone's sensors almost overloaded. The bear was telling the human to leave its territory. Any smart creature would run away now. Jake Morrison stopped walking. He saw the bear. Zix expected him to panic, but the human did not run. Instead, he did something that shocked everyone on the ship. He made himself look bigger. He raised his arms above his head. He opened his mouth and shouted back at the bear. The human was challenging the bear. He was not running away. He was not hiding. He was facing a creature 3 times his size and threatening it back. This made no sense at all. Cree made a sound of confusion. The other crew members stopped what they were doing. Everyone was watching the screen now. They could not believe what they were seeing. Then the human did something even more crazy. He started walking toward the bear. He picked up a long stick from the ground. He hit the stick against a tree. The sound was sharp and loud. Then he ran at the bear while screaming. The bear dropped down to all 4 legs. It looked confused. Nothing had ever done this before. Prey animals always ran away. Other predators usually backed down after showing their teeth. But this small creature was attacking. The bear had never seen anything like this. Jake Morrison kept running. He kept screaming. He waved the stick in the air. He looked wild and dangerous even though he was much smaller than the bear. He looked like he was ready to fight until one of them died. The bear turned around and ran away. It crashed through the bushes and disappeared into the forest. The huge predator was running from a human with a stick. The bear had all the advantages. It had size, strength, claws, and teeth, but it ran away from the weaker creature. Jake Morrison stood there breathing hard. He lowered the stick. He watched the bear disappear. Then he laughed a little bit. He seemed surprised that his plan had worked. But he had never stopped moving forward. He had bet his life that the bear would back down first. Zix could not speak. His mouth did not work. He just stared at the screen. Around him, his crew was equally silent. No one knew what to say. They had never seen anything like this in all their years of exploring space. Finally, Cree spoke. Her voice was quiet and uncertain. She said maybe this was just one strange human. Maybe Jake Morrison was different from other humans. Maybe he had some kind of mental problem that made him act crazy. Surely normal humans would not do this. But Zix had a bad feeling in his stomach. He told his team to search human internet networks. He wanted to find other examples. He wanted to know if this behavior was normal or rare. He needed to understand what kind of species they were planning to invade. The team worked for hours. They searched through millions of human videos and stories. What they found made the invasion plan seem like a terrible mistake. Jake Morrison was not unusual at all. He was completely normal for a human, and that fact terrified Zix more than anything he had ever encountered in space. Zix stood before the High Council of the Valerian Dominion. 12 leaders appeared as holograms around him. They ruled over 47 conquered worlds. They expected Zix to give them good news about Earth. They expected him to say the invasion could begin soon. Instead, Zix was about to tell them something they would not want to hear. High Counselor Vor spoke first. His voice was calm but firm. He asked why Zix wanted to delay the invasion. The fleet was ready. The weapons were prepared. Earth had nothing that could stop them. So why wait? Zix took a deep breath. Then he activated the holographic display. The image of Jake Morrison facing the grizzly bear appeared in the center of the council chamber. Zix let the video play without saying anything. The council members watched as the human charged at a creature 3 times his size. They watched as the bear ran away. Council members started talking all at once. They said this must be a mistake. No creature would act this way. The data had to be corrupted or fake. Zix raised his hand for silence. He told them this was real. He told them this was normal human behavior. Then he showed them more videos. Lisa Chen punching the mountain lion. Greg Palmer spraying the bear. Frank Peters fighting the alligator. Each video made the council members more uncomfortable. They shifted in their seats. They exchanged worried looks. This was not what they expected to see. Zix pulled up the medical analysis next. He explained that Earth was a Class 12 death world. He showed them how strong human bones were. He explained their immune systems and healing abilities. He described their pain tolerance and their adrenaline response. He made sure the council understood exactly what they were dealing with. Counselor Dex spoke up. She said biology did not matter if humans had weak technology. The Valerians could destroy human cities from orbit. They could win before humans ever got close enough to fight back. The council did not need to fear primitive weapons. Zix had prepared for this argument. He pulled up footage from human wars. He showed battles where humans fought in deserts, jungles, and frozen mountains. He showed them how humans adapted to any environment. He showed them guerrilla warfare tactics where small groups of fighters defeated much larger armies. He explained that humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They had learned every possible way to kill each other. They knew how to fight in cities, forests, mountains, and plains. They knew how to fight during day and night. They knew how to fight when they had good weapons and when they had almost nothing. Then Zix showed them the nuclear weapons. He explained that humans had enough bombs to destroy their own planet multiple times. He told the council about mutually assured destruction. Humans would rather die than surrender. They would use those weapons if an alien invasion force threatened their world. The council chamber became very quiet. No one wanted to speak. They were all thinking about what Zix had told them. Finally, Counselor Ra asked a question. He wanted to know if humans could be reasoned with. Could they be negotiated with instead of conquered? Zix smiled for the first time during the meeting. This was exactly what he hoped someone would ask. He pulled up human entertainment media. He showed movies where humans met friendly aliens. He showed books about peaceful cooperation between species. He showed that humans dreamed of having friends among the stars, but he also showed the other side. He showed movies where humans fought back against hostile aliens. In every single story, the humans never gave up. They fought until they won or until they died trying. Their entertainment revealed their values. Peace was preferred, but they would choose war if necessary. Zix explained something important to the council. Humans formed emotional bonds very easily. They made friends with other species. They adopted dangerous animals as pets. They risked their lives to save strangers. If the Valerians approached humans as friends, humans would probably respond with friendship. But if they approached as enemies, humans would fight forever. He showed them one more video. It was a human space probe called Voyager. Humans had launched it into deep space decades ago. Attached to it was a golden record with information about Earth. The record had pictures, sounds, music, and greetings in many languages. Humans sent it out hoping that someone would find it someday. They wanted to say hello to the universe. Zix let that image stay on the screen. He told the council that this showed the true nature of humans. They were curious. They wanted to explore. They wanted to meet others and share what they had learned. Yes, they could fight. Yes, they were dangerous. But they preferred peace if it was offered honestly. The council debated for 3 hours. Zix waited outside the chamber while they discussed what to do. He knew this decision would change everything for the Valerian Dominion. They had never backed down from a planned invasion before, but they had also never met a species like humans before. Finally, the council called Zix back inside. For looked tired but determined. He announced that the council had made a decision. The invasion of Earth was cancelled. Instead, they would send a diplomatic mission to make first contact. They would try to establish peaceful relations, but there was more. Four said that Zix would lead the diplomatic mission. If humans were as dangerous as he claimed, then the Dominion needed someone who understood them. Zix had studied humans more than anyone else. He would be their ambassador. Zix accepted the responsibility, but he felt nervous about it. Making first contact was always risky. Humans might see through the diplomatic approach. They might realize that the Valerians had originally planned to invade. They might refuse to trust aliens who had watched them from the shadows, or seemed to read his thoughts. The High Counselor said that Zix should be honest with humans. Tell them the truth. Explain that the Valerians had planned invasion but changed their minds after learning more. Humans valued honesty according to everything Zix had reported. They would respect truth more than comfortable lies. Zix agreed with this approach. Humans were too smart to fool with fake stories. They would ask questions. They would want to know why aliens had come to their system. Starting a relationship with lies would only create problems later. The council gave Zix 3 months to prepare. He would take a small diplomatic ship to Earth. He would contact human governments. He would offer friendship and trade instead of conquest. If humans accepted, then Earth would be the first planet to join the Dominion as equals, rather than as conquered subjects. As Zix left the council chamber, he thought about Jake Morrison again. That single moment of a human facing down a bear had changed the course of 2 civilizations. One act of courage had saved Earth from invasion and pushed the Dominion toward a new way of dealing with other species. Zix returned to his observation ship. He told his crew about the council's decision. Some were relieved. They had not wanted to fight humans after learning what they could do. Others were skeptical. They worried that humans would reject the diplomatic approach. Kree asked what would happen if humans refused to be friends. What if they saw the Valerian fleet as a threat and attacked? Zix admitted he did not know, but he believed humans would at least listen. They would want to understand why aliens had come to their world, and if the Valerians offered genuine friendship, humans might accept. Over the next 3 months, Zix prepared carefully. He studied human languages and customs. He learned about their governments and religions. He watched thousands of hours of human media to understand their culture. He wanted to approach them the right way. He also prepared his crew. They would be the first Valerians to meet humans face to face. They needed to understand how different humans were from other species. Humans shook hands as a greeting, which involved physical contact. They made direct eye contact when talking. They used facial expressions to show emotions. All of these things were strange to Valerians, but they needed to learn them. The day finally came to leave for Earth. Zix stood on the bridge of his diplomatic ship. The crew was nervous but ready. They plotted a course that would bring them to the edge of Earth's solar system. They would announce themselves from a safe distance. They would give humans time to respond before coming closer. As the ship prepared to jump to faster than light speed, Zix thought about what he would say during first contact. How do you tell a species that you plan to invade them, but decided to be friends instead? How do you convince them that you mean no harm now? He decided to keep it simple. Tell the truth. Show respect. Offer friendship. And hope that humans would give the Valerians a chance to prove they could be trusted. The ship jumped to light speed. In a few days, they would arrive at Earth. Zix would either make history as the alien who brought peace between species, or he would be remembered as the fool who underestimated humans one last time. Either way, the meeting would change everything. The diplomatic ship appeared at the edge of the solar system. Zix gave the order to begin broadcasting. The ship sent out signals on every frequency that humans used for communication. The message was simple. It contained math sequences that any intelligent species would recognize. It included images of the Valerians so humans would know what they looked like. It repeated every 30 seconds. Within minutes, human satellites picked up the signal. Within an hour, every government on Earth knew that aliens were near their planet. Zix watched human communication networks light up with activity. News stations broadcast the story everywhere. Social media exploded with discussions. The whole planet was talking about aliens. What surprised Zix was how calm most humans seemed. There was excitement and fear, but not panic. Humans had been imagining this moment for decades through their movies and books. They had thought about what they would do if aliens came. Now it was really happening, and they were handling it well. A response came from Earth faster than Zix expected. A video transmission appeared on his screen. It showed a human male in formal clothing standing at a podium. Behind him were hundreds of flags from different nations. The man identified himself as Peter Gonzalez, leader of something called the United Nations. Peter Gonzalez spoke in English. The translation software converted his words into concepts that Zix could understand. The human welcomed the Valerians to the solar system. He said humans were ready for peaceful contact if that was what the aliens wanted. He offered to meet in person to discuss how both species could work together. Zix was impressed by how quickly humans had organized a response. Different human nations worked together despite their many disagreements. They presented a unified message to the aliens. This showed intelligence and cooperation. Zix sent his own message back. He introduced himself and explained that the Valerians wanted to establish diplomatic relations. He asked permission to approach Earth in a small shuttle. He promised to share information about Valerian technology so humans would not be afraid. He suggested meeting in 3 days to give both sides time to prepare. Peter Gonzalez agreed to these terms. He also made a smart request. He asked Zix to limit the size of the ship that came to Earth. He wanted to make sure humans felt safe. Zix understood this. Humans were being cautious while still being friendly. This was exactly the kind of careful thinking he expected from them. 3 days later, a small Valerian shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere. Human fighter jets flew alongside it as escorts. The jets were primitive compared to Valerian craft, but Zix noted how well the human pilots flew. They maintained perfect formation. They were ready to defend their planet if needed, but also willing to guide the aliens safely to landing. The shuttle landed outside the United Nations building in New York City. Thousands of humans had gathered to watch despite security efforts to keep them away. They held signs. Some welcomed the aliens. Some demanded answers. Some expressed fear. But they were not rioting or panicking. They were watching and waiting to see what would happen. Zix put on his environmental suit. Earth's atmosphere was toxic to Valerians. Too much oxygen and too much pressure. Without protection, he would die within minutes. He led his small team down the shuttle ramp. Waiting for them was Peter Gonzalez and representatives from many human nations. Peter Gonzalez stepped forward. He extended his hand in the human greeting gesture. Zix had practiced this many times. He carefully grasped the human's hand and shook it gently. The human's skin was warm and soft compared to Valerian crystal structure. The greeting felt strange but not unpleasant. The humans led the Valerians inside the building. Security personnel lined the hallways. They carried weapons but kept them lowered. Zix noticed how alert they were. These humans were ready to fight if necessary, but they were giving peace a chance first. He respected that. The meeting room was large with a round table. Representatives from dozens of human nations took their seats. They represented different skin colors, languages, and cultures. Yet they all worked together. Zix found this fascinating. Valerians were all very similar to each other. Humans had incredible diversity but still managed to cooperate. Peter Gonzalez started the meeting. He thanked Zix for coming. Then he asked the question that all humans wanted answered. Why had the Valerians come to Earth? What did they want? Zix had prepared for this moment. He decided to tell the complete truth. He explained that the Valerian Dominion had originally come to evaluate Earth for conquest. They planned to invade and add Earth to their empire. They thought humans would be easy to defeat. The room erupted. Humans jumped to their feet. Voices were raised in anger and alarm. Security guards tensed and moved their hands toward weapons. Zix remained still and waited for the initial shock to pass. Peter Gonzalez called for calm. He raised his hands and asked everyone to let Zix finish speaking. The room slowly quieted down, but the tension remained thick. Zix continued. He explained that the Valerians had changed their plans completely after observing humans more carefully. He showed them the video of Jake Morrison and the bear. He explained how that single event had made the Valerians realize what kind of species humans really were. He told them about the research his team had done. He shared how they had learned about human resilience, determination, and fighting ability. He admitted that the Valerians had become frightened. Invading Earth would have been a disaster for the Dominion. Humans would never stop fighting back. Eventually, they would have destroyed the Valerian Empire. So instead of conquest, the Valerians decided to offer friendship. They wanted to establish trade and cultural exchange. They wanted to learn from humans and teach humans what they knew. They hoped to build an alliance between equals rather than a relationship between conqueror and conquered. The silence that followed was heavy. Zix could see humans processing this information. They were weighing his admission of hostile intent against the decision to change course. They were trying to decide if they could trust aliens who had planned to invade them. Finally, a human woman named Catherine Brooks spoke. She represented a nation called the United States. She pointed out that honesty about planning an invasion was not exactly a good foundation for trust. How could humans believe that Valerians had really changed their minds? Zix acknowledged this was a fair concern. He offered to share all the research his team had collected about humans. He would show them exactly what had convinced the Valerians to abandon the invasion. He would prove that the decision was based on genuine respect and even fear of human capabilities. Another human named Liu Wei from China asked what the Valerians wanted in exchange for friendship. What would this alliance cost Earth? Zix explained that the Valerians could offer advanced technology. They had faster-than-light travel. They had medical knowledge that could cure human diseases. They had clean energy systems and powerful computers. They would share these things gradually so human society could adapt without being disrupted. In exchange, the Valerians wanted to learn from humans. They wanted to understand how humans survived on a death world. They wanted to study human psychology and culture. They also wanted to establish trade in resources and cultural products. Human art, music, and stories fascinated the Valerians. A human named Kumar Singh from India asked if Earth would remain independent. Would humans have to obey Valerian laws or join their government? Zix assured him that Earth would keep complete sovereignty. Humans would make their own decisions about their planet. The Valerians would not interfere in human affairs. If Earth eventually wanted to join the Dominion, it would be as an equal member with full voting rights, not as a conquered territory. The questions continued for hours. Humans asked about Valerian military strength. They asked about other alien species. They asked what would happen if the alliance failed. They wanted to know everything before making any decisions. Zix answered every question as honestly as he could. His team provided demonstrations of Valerian technology. They showed holographic displays, energy weapons, and faster-than-light communication devices. They wanted humans to understand exactly what they were being offered. As the day ended, Peter Gonzalez called for a break. He explained that humans needed time to discuss this among themselves. The decision affected all of humanity. Every nation needed to have input. They could not rush something this important. Zix agreed completely. He offered to return the next day for more discussions. As his team prepared to leave, someone approached him. It was Jake Morrison, the man who had faced the bear. He had been invited to the meeting as a symbolic representative of human courage. Jake extended his hand. Zix shook it carefully. The human smiled and said he had heard that his encounter with the bear had changed everything. He found it funny that one moment in the forest had led to all of this. Zix told him it was not funny at all. It was important. Jake Morrison had shown the Valerians what humans were capable of. He had demonstrated courage, determination, and a refusal to back down from threats. Those qualities had saved both species from a terrible war. Jake thought about this for a moment. Then he said he hoped humans and Valerians could be friends. But he also said that if friendship was not possible, humans would do what they always did. They would fight to protect their world and their freedom. 6 months had passed since first contact. The world had changed in ways nobody expected. Humans and Valerians were learning to work together. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges were happening. Technology was being shared carefully. A new era had begun for both species. Zix now lived on Earth as the Valerian ambassador. He had an office in a building specially designed for both species. Part of it had Earth's normal atmosphere for humans. Part of it was sealed and filled with the gas mixture that Valerians needed to breathe. The two sections were connected by airlocks and meeting rooms where both species could gather. Living on Earth was strange for Zix. Everything was heavier because of the strong gravity. The sun was too bright. The weather changed constantly. Rain, wind, snow, and heat all happened in random patterns. Valerian weather was predictable and gentle. Earth's weather was chaotic and sometimes dangerous, but Zix was learning to appreciate Earth's wild beauty. He had visited mountains, forests, oceans, and deserts. Each environment was unique and filled with life. The diversity of Earth's biosphere amazed him. His homeworld had a few hundred species total. Earth had millions. Today, Zix was traveling to Alaska with a group of Valerian scientists. They had asked to see human survival training. The Dominion wanted to understand how humans prepared themselves to live on such a dangerous planet. A human military instructor named Carl Jensen had agreed to let them observe his classes. The training facility was in the wilderness far from any cities. Snow covered the ground. The temperature was far below freezing. Zix wore his environmental suit with extra heating. Even with the suit, he felt cold. The Valerian scientists huddled together, uncomfortable in the harsh conditions. Carl Jensen met them at the entrance. He was a large man with gray hair and a thick beard. He wore layers of heavy clothing, but seemed completely comfortable in the freezing weather. He welcomed the Valerians and explained what they would see today. The students were search and rescue workers. Their job was to find and help people who got lost or injured in the wilderness. They needed to know how to survive in extreme conditions. Today's lesson was about winter survival in the Arctic. Carl took them to where the students were building shelters. The humans were digging into the snow and creating small caves. Carl explained that snow was actually a good insulator. A properly built snow cave could protect someone from wind and cold. Body heat would warm the inside enough to prevent freezing. The Valerian scientists watched in fascination as humans transformed deadly cold into something survivable. They used simple tools and knowledge instead of technology. Within an hour, each team had created a shelter that could keep them alive overnight. Next came fire building. Carl showed the students how to find dry wood and kindling even when everything looked wet and frozen. He demonstrated several methods of starting fires without matches. Friction, sparks, and focused sunlight could all create flames if you knew the right techniques. The students practiced these methods. It was difficult work. Their hands got cold. The materials were damp. But one by one, small fires began to burn. Smoke rose into the gray sky. The humans warmed their hands by the flames and smiled. One of the Valerian scientists named Six asked why humans did this. Why train for such dangerous situations? Why not just avoid the wilderness completely? Carl heard the question through the translation device. He explained that humans wanted to experience nature. They found beauty in wild places. They climbed mountains, explored forests, and traveled to remote areas because it made them feel alive. But sometimes things went wrong. People got lost or hurt. Search and rescue teams saved lives by knowing how to survive anywhere. The training continued. Carl taught students how to find and purify water. He showed them which plants were safe to eat. He demonstrated navigation using the sun, stars, and natural landmarks. He explained how to signal for help using mirrors, smoke, and bright cloth. Then came the most shocking part of the training. Carl led everyone to a partially frozen lake. He announced that students would practice cold water survival. If someone fell through ice, they needed to know how to get out and avoid dying from hypothermia. The Valerians watched in horror as humans deliberately entered the freezing water. They practiced pulling themselves onto the ice using special spiked tools. Their skin turned red, their whole bodies shook violently from cold, but they completed the exercise. Then they quickly changed into dry clothes and warmed themselves by fires. Six spoke quietly to Zix. She said this was madness. Humans were intentionally harming themselves to prepare for situations they might never face. What kind of species did this? Zix replied that this was exactly the kind of species that survived on a death world. Humans imagined the worst possible scenarios and prepared for them. They practiced until dangerous situations became manageable. This was why they were so hard to defeat. They were always ready for disaster. That evening, back at the embassy, Zix wrote his report to the High Council. He included video of the training exercises. He explained that human resilience was not just natural ability. It was also learned behavior passed down through generations. Humans deliberately taught their children how to survive in terrible conditions. The High Council responded quickly. Vor contacted Zix directly through secure communication. The High Counselor said the reports from Earth continued to be disturbing. Human entertainment still focused heavily on conflict and violence. Combined with their survival abilities, this made some council members nervous about the alliance. Zix argued that the council was misunderstanding. Yes, humans created entertainment about fighting, but they also created just as much about love, friendship, and cooperation. Human nature included both violence and compassion. The key was encouraging the compassionate side through friendship, rather than threatening them and bringing out the violent side. He reminded Vor that the alliance was working well. Humans had welcomed Valerian visitors. They shared their culture openly. They treated Valerians with kindness and curiosity. Young humans were especially excited about meeting aliens. They asked questions and wanted to learn everything about Valerian society. Zix pulled up video footage to support his point. It showed a Valerian child visiting a human school. The human children had gathered around, fascinated by the crystal-like appearance of the alien. They offered to share their lunch. They showed the Valerian child their drawings and toys. They treated the visitor as just another student despite obvious differences. This was true human nature, Zix insisted. They formed bonds easily with anyone or anything they perceived as friendly. They were naturally curious and welcoming. Yes, they could be dangerous if threatened, but they chose cooperation when given the chance. Vor was silent for a moment. Then he admitted that perhaps Zix was right. The Dominion had spent centuries conquering worlds through force. They had forgotten how to make genuine friends. Humans were teaching them a different way of interacting with other species. The next few weeks brought a test of the alliance. A distress signal reached both Earth and the Dominion. A merchant ship was under attack by pirates in a nearby star system. The ship had both Valerian and human crew members aboard as part of a cultural exchange program. The High Council immediately requested human assistance. The nearest Dominion military ships would take days to arrive. But Earth had a new spacecraft called the USS Liberty. It was built using both human and Valerian technology. It could reach the merchant ship much faster. Zix watched from Earth as the situation developed. Within hours, the Liberty was moving at incredible speed toward the attack. The ship's captain was a human named Nicole Diaz. She had military experience and was known for making smart tactical decisions. Nicole Diaz contacted the pirate ship. She demanded they release the hostages immediately. The pirates responded by shooting at the Liberty. They thought their larger ship and heavier weapons would win easily. They were wrong. What followed showed why humans were such effective fighters. The Liberty used a combination of Valerian shields and human maneuvering tactics to avoid damage. Then it targeted the pirate ship's weapons with precise shots. The human crew worked together with perfect coordination. They anticipated each other's actions without needing long discussions. Within 20 minutes, the pirate ship was disabled. Its weapons were destroyed. Its engines were damaged. It drifted helplessly in space. The Liberty docked with the merchant vessel. Human Marines in combat armor breached the hull and moved through the corridors. Zix watched the helmet camera footage. The human soldiers moved like water flowing around obstacles. They communicated with hand signals and short words. They cleared each room efficiently. When they found the hostages, they secured them quickly and professionally. The entire rescue took 42 minutes from arrival to completion. Not a single hostage was seriously injured. The pirates were captured without killing any of them. The human team had used exactly enough force to stop the threat without excessive violence. Nicole Diaz reported mission success and requested instructions for handling the prisoners. The High Council was impressed. They had watched the entire operation. The human captain had shown excellent judgment. The Marines had demonstrated impressive combat ability. But more importantly, they had shown restraint. They could have killed. 2 years had passed since Earth joined the Valerian Dominion. The galaxy was different now. Humans had spread beyond their planet. They built colonies on Mars and the Moon. They traveled to other star systems. Everywhere they went, they brought their unique approach to life. Zix remained on Earth as ambassador, but he also traveled frequently between worlds. He had become friends with many humans. He understood them better now. They were complex creatures full of contradictions. They could be violent yet gentle, aggressive yet compassionate, fearless yet thoughtful. Today, Zix was attending the opening of a joint research facility on a planet called Haven. This world was in neutral space between Valerian and human territories. Scientists from both species would work together here to study biology, medicine, and technology. It represented everything the Alliance hoped to achieve. The facility director was a human woman named Dr. Rachel Morgan. She had been one of the first humans to visit a Valerian world. She spoke both English and basic Valerian language. She understood how important this cooperation was for both species. The ceremony was attended by representatives from a dozen worlds. Humans mingled with Valerians and other alien species. The Dominion had 47 member worlds before Earth joined. Now there were 48, and each of those worlds was curious about the humans who had changed everything. A Valerian scientist named Dex approached Zix during the reception. Dex had spent 6 months on Earth studying human medicine. He wanted to understand how human bodies healed so effectively. His research had led to breakthroughs in Valerian medical treatment. Dex explained his findings excitedly. Human immune systems attacked infections with incredible aggression. By studying this process, Valerian doctors had developed new ways to boost their own immune responses. Diseases that once killed Valerians could now be treated successfully. Human biology was literally saving Valerian lives. But Dex had also learned something else. He had studied human psychology and culture. He had watched how humans handled stress and trauma. They had something called therapy, where they talked about their problems with trained listeners. They had support groups where people helped each other through difficult times. They had learned to take care of mental health as carefully as physical health. This was completely new to Valerians. Their society was logical and orderly. Emotional problems were ignored or hidden. But humans showed that talking about feelings made people stronger, not weaker. Several Valerian colonies had started adopting human approaches to mental health. The results were remarkable. Valerians were happier and more productive. Zix listened with satisfaction. This was what he had hoped would happen. Humans and Valerians learning from each other, both species becoming better through cooperation. The Alliance was working exactly as it should. Later, during the main ceremony, Dr. Morgan gave a speech. She talked about how different humans and Valerians were. Humans evolved on a death world. Valerians evolved on a paradise. Humans learned to fight for survival every day. Valerians learned to live in peace and harmony. But despite these differences, both species wanted the same things. They wanted to explore. They wanted to learn. They wanted to build something better for their children. These shared goals were more important than their differences. She mentioned Jake Morrison and the bear. That story had become famous across the Dominion. Every alien species knew about the human who charged at a predator with nothing but a stick. The story was told as an example of human courage, but Dr. Morgan said it was also about something else. Jake Morrison faced the bear because running away would mean certain death. Standing and fighting gave him a chance to survive. Humans always chose to fight when fighting gave them better odds than surrender. This was not crazy. This was logical survival behavior on a world that tried to kill them constantly. The speech received applause from both humans and aliens. Zix appreciated how Dr. Morgan explained human nature in ways that other species could understand. Humans were not violent for no reason. They were survivors who had learned to face threats directly, because that strategy worked best on Earth. After the ceremony, Zix received a message from the High Council. They wanted to discuss an important matter. He entered a secure communication room and contacted Vor directly. The High Counselor looked pleased. He said that the Council had been reviewing reports from all over the Dominion. Human influence was spreading everywhere. And it was mostly positive. Crime rates were dropping on worlds where humans shared their justice system ideas. Medical care was improving where human techniques were adopted. Even art and music were becoming more diverse and interesting. But Vor had concerns too. Some Dominion worlds were uncomfortable with human directness. Humans said what they meant clearly. They confronted problems directly. They did not hide behind polite words. This was disturbing to species that valued indirect communication and social harmony. There were also incidents where humans had gotten into fights defending friends or principles. No one was seriously hurt, but it showed that human aggression could surface quickly when they felt protective or threatened. Some aliens worried that humans would become violent over small disagreements. Zix understood these concerns. He explained that human aggression was not random. It followed predictable patterns. Humans fought to protect themselves, their loved ones, their homes, or their values. They did not fight for no reason. If other species understood these triggers and avoided them, there would be no problems. He also pointed out that human directness was refreshing. Other Dominion species spent hours in meetings talking around issues. Humans identified problems quickly and proposed solutions. This efficiency saved time and prevented misunderstandings. Some discomfort was worth the benefits. Vor accepted this explanation. He admitted that the Dominion was changing because of human influence. Some changes were uncomfortable, but overall the alliance made everyone stronger. The Council had decided to support continued integration between humans and other species. The conversation ended with Vor asking about Zix's plans. Would he remain as ambassador to Earth, or would he prefer another assignment? Zix replied immediately. He wanted to stay. Earth had become his second home. He had friends here. He understood humans in ways few Valerians did. His work was important and he wanted to continue it. Vor smiled, which was rare for the serious High Counselor. He said Zix had changed too. When he first arrived at Earth, he was frightened of humans. Now he defended them to the Council. He had learned to see humans not as threats but as partners. This was exactly the attitude the Dominion needed. Months passed. The Joint Research Facility produced amazing results. Human and Valerian scientists worked together on projects neither could accomplish alone. They cured diseases. They developed new energy sources. They invented technologies that combined human creativity with Valerian precision. But the biggest change was cultural. Humans introduced the Dominion to concepts like humor, sports, and entertainment for its own sake. Valerians had art, but it was formal and serious. Human art was wild and diverse. Music, movies, games, and stories from Earth spread across the galaxy. Young Valerians especially loved human culture. They watched Earth movies. They listened to human music. They played human sports. Their parents worried this was too much change too quickly. But the young people were happy and engaged with life in new ways. Zix attended a concert in New York City, where human and Valerian musicians performed together. The music was strange but beautiful. Human instruments combined with Valerian sound crystals. The result was something neither species could create alone. The audience included aliens from a dozen worlds, all enjoying the performance together. After the concert, Zix met with Jake Morrison for dinner. They had become friends over the years. Jake was now working as a consultant helping aliens understand human psychology. His experience facing the bear had made him famous, but he handled the attention with humor and grace. Jake asked Zix an interesting question. If he could go back and change things, would he? Would he want the Dominion to have never planned to invade Earth? Zix thought carefully before answering. He said that he wished the invasion had never been considered. Planning to conquer Earth was wrong, but he was glad the plan failed before any harm was done. The confrontation with the bear had forced both species to meet as equals, rather than as conqueror and conquered. Sometimes bad intentions led to good outcomes when people were willing to change course. The Dominion had been on the wrong path. Humans showed them a better way. Now both species benefited from friendship that might never have formed otherwise. Jake accepted this answer. He said humans believed that mistakes were opportunities to learn. The important thing was not being perfect. The important thing was recognizing errors and fixing them. The Valerians had done that. They deserved credit for choosing peace over pride. The conversation turned to the future. Human ships were exploring new parts of the galaxy. They were discovering planets and meeting new species. Everywhere they went, they offered friendship first. But they were also prepared to defend themselves if necessary. Some new species accepted human friendship immediately. Others were suspicious or hostile. But humans were patient. They remembered that the Valerians had also been hostile at first. Given time and understanding,